How the economy got out of that was FDR. The wealth gap was too big in the 1920s. That's why they call it the Roaring 20s. In the Roaring 20s, that's where American ghettos were at their most violent, more violent than they are right now. See, in the 1920s, black people didn't live in the ghetto. Black people still lived in rural communities. Just go talk to your grandparents if they're still alive. Or if they're not alive, go look up where your family comes from. Your family wasn't living in Chicago and New York. Well, New York was a little different. But your family weren't living in LA, Seattle, Atlanta like that. They were living in rural communities in the South. The ghettos were where ethnic white people lived. The Greeks, the Italians, the Dutch, the Irish, they were known as ethnic. They weren't known as white then. And they were forced to live in the ghettos, in the inner cities. Money had gotten too tight. So tight for them that there was a lot of warring going on, a lot of fighting, a lot of shooting, Tommy guns. That era is now glorified through the mafia movies. We look back and glorify those times, but those times were not glorious. White on white crime was at an all-time high. So the people fought back. And FDR came out with the New Deal, where social programs, Social Security, the 40-hour work week, unemployment benefits. Well, unemployment came later in the 60s. But the money to fund a lot of these programs that we now take for granted was paid for by a wealth tax. Again, I say FDR wanted to charge anybody making over $25,000 100% of their income. But he settled on 75% of the income of the highest of people making over $1 million a year. They closed corporate loopholes. They didn't tell the people, well, now all you got to do is open up a corporation yourself and then jump through this hurdle and jump through that hurdle and everything is going to be fine. No. They said, fuck that shit. And started charging the wealthiest Americans their fair share. It's because the people stood up. Throughout the 1940s, people still weren't happy. So then you bring in Eisenhower. Eisenhower, at one point, was taxing the wealthiest Americans 91% of their income. That 91% tax on the wealthiest of Americans is what built our freeway system. It's what built these airports that we now enjoy. The things this country takes for granted now was built through a heavy tax on the wealthy. And the reason why the wealthy were taxed is because of this. The reason you get to make this amount of money in this country is because of the infrastructure this country has built for you. So because this country built the infrastructure for you to make the amount of money you make, you owe it back to the country to pay your taxes so the next generation can benefit from the infrastructure that their parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents paid for through their taxes. Now we're here again in another Gilded Age, on the cusp of a mass revolt. Jeff Bezos is Cuban. How the fuck can he make this much goddamn money in this country and he ain't even been here long enough to put in adequately and still not pay taxes? Elon Musk, South African. Why couldn't he make that money in South Africa? If Elon Musk was so dope, why the fuck couldn't he make the money back home? If Steve Jobs was so dope, why the fuck couldn't he make that money back in Syria where he from? If Jeff Bezos is so dope, why the fuck couldn't he make his money back in Cuba? Why? Because those countries did not invest in the infrastructure it took to make the amount of money that they made off of their product.